There is a moment that happens to almost every adult in America, usually somewhere between 28 and 35. You are sitting at a kitchen table, or a laptop screen, or a bank office that smells like carpet cleaner and mild anxiety, and someone puts a number in front of you, a big number, and you have to decide what to do with it. Not tomorrow, not after more time to think. Now, with the information you have, with the fear you have, with the opinions of every person in your life who has somehow become an expert on real estate or investing the moment they found out you had money to do something with. The decision you make in that moment will quietly shape the next 30 years of your financial life in ways you cannot fully see until it is mostly too late to change them. This is a story about two people who sat at that table on the same day with the same number. One bought a house, one didn't. 20 years later, I am going to show you exactly where both of them ended up. Every dollar, every cost, every number the glossy real estate brochures leave out and the investing influencers forget to mention. And at the end, I am going to ask you one question that has nothing to do with which one was right, because the answer to that is not what you think it is. Marcus is 32. He works in operations at a logistics company in a mid-sized American city, makes $80,000 a year, has been careful with money the way people are careful with money when they grew up watching their parents not be careful with it. Store brand everything, no car payment, lunch packed 4 days out of 5. The 5th day, he allows himself Chipotle without guilt, because financial discipline without a release valve is just a slower form of misery. After 6 years of this, Marcus has $80,000 saved. He wants to buy a house, not because some podcast told him real estate was the only path to wealth, but because he watched his parents pay off their mortgage over 30 years and remembers the specific look on his father's face the month it was finally gone, like something that had been sitting on his shoulders since 1987 had finally been asked to leave. Marcus wants that feeling. Jordan is also 32. Same city, different company. Same salary. Same $80,000 saved through the same combination of discipline, delayed gratification, and a willingness to eat the same breakfast every morning because it was cheap and nobody was watching. Jordan does not want to buy a house, not because renting is smarter, but because he watched his parents get trapped in a house they could not sell and could not afford to keep after 2008. He watched that house turn every conversation about money into a conversation about survival. He watched his father sit at a kitchen table in 2009 doing math that did not have a good answer, no matter how many times he ran it. Jordan wants flexibility the way Marcus wants permanence. Neither of them is wrong. Neither of them knows yet what right is actually going to cost. Same city, same income, same savings, same Tuesday morning in the same branch of the same bank. The line splits here. Quick pause right here. Everything we are covering in this video, the real math, the decisions that actually matter, I put it all into one complete guide called the Silent Millionaire Blueprint. Over 120 pages, real numbers, real people, a full action plan you can start today. Right now, it is just $11.99. Launch price. Link is in the description. Okay, let's keep going. Marcus finds the house in March. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a west-facing backyard that gets shade in the afternoon from a neighbor's oak tree, a garage he will use primarily for storing exercise equipment he intends to use and never does. A neighborhood where people wave when you pull into the driveway, not because they know you yet, but because that is just what people do on this street. He gets it for $348,500 after 3 weeks of offers and counters and the specific emotional exhaustion of wanting something badly while trying to appear like you could walk away from it. Now, here is where most people start doing the math wrong. They see $348,500 and they calculate a down payment and a monthly mortgage number, and they think that is the whole picture. It is not even most of the picture. Marcus puts 20% down to avoid private mortgage insurance. That is $69,700. He takes a 30-year fixed mortgage at 7% on the remaining $278,800. His principal and interest payment comes to $1,855 a month. But Marcus needs more than the down payment to get the keys. Closing costs arrive like a guest list nobody warned him about. loan origination fees, title search, title insurance, home inspection, appraisal fee, prepaid property taxes, prepaid homeowners insurance, recording fees, attorney fees, and a stack of documents so thick that Marcus signs the last one with the specific numbness of a person who stopped reading somewhere around page 34 and decided to trust that nothing in pages 35 through 67 would fundamentally change his life. Closing costs on a home this size run between 2% and 5% of the purchase price. On a $348,500 home, that is somewhere between $6,970 and $17,425. Marcus's closing costs come to $10,400. So before Marcus spends a single night in this house, before he has assembled the garage workbench, or argued with a contractor, or stood in the backyard listening to it be quiet in a way his apartment never was, he has spent $80,100. His entire savings. Every dollar from 6 years of packed lunches and store-brand cereal, and the car he drove 2 years past the point where it stopped being reliable and started being a statement about his unwillingness to spend money on himself. Gone in one afternoon. In exchange for a key on a phone keychain and a garage door opener that will lose its battery within 6 weeks. Now the full monthly picture. Principal and interest runs $1,855. Property taxes add $358. Homeowners insurance costs $155. And Marcus sets aside $290 every month as a maintenance reserve, roughly 1% of the home's value each year. His total monthly housing cost comes to $2,658. That maintenance reserve is not optional. It is the money that exists so when the water heater fails at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, Marcus does not have to choose between fixing it and paying something else. It is the money that every first-time homeowner underfunds, and every experienced homeowner wishes they had started building earlier. Marcus moves in on a Friday. The house feels enormous and quiet and completely his. He stands in the backyard for a long time that first evening, watching the neighbor's oak tree shade his grass, and thinking about his father's face the month the mortgage was gone. He has 360 payments to make before he gets there. Jordan signs a lease on a comparable 3-bedroom house 2 neighborhoods over, $2,100 a month. No property taxes, no homeowners insurance, no maintenance reserve. If the water heater fails at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, Jordan sends a text to a contact saved in his phone as landlord Dave, and Dave handles it. This is not a small thing. This is a genuinely underrated advantage of renting that nobody in the homeownership camp wants to give appropriate credit. Jordan's $80,000 goes into a Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund the same week Marcus gets his keys. Expense ratio of 0.04%. The single most boring investment instrument available to ordinary Americans and over long periods of time, one of the most consistently effective. He sets up an automatic monthly contribution for the difference between what Marcus pays and what he pays. $2,658 minus $2,100 is $558. That $558 goes into the same index fund every single month. At least, that is the plan. We will come back to the plan. Now here's the part nobody explains clearly before you sign a mortgage. Marcus's first statement arrives. He pays $1,855. Of that, $1,629 goes to interest. $226 reduces what he actually owes the bank. He reads it again. Same numbers. This is amortization. On a 30-year mortgage at 7%, the bank collects its interest first. Always. Equity builds with the patience of something geological. Marcus knew this. He had read about it. But reading about something and watching $1,629 leave your account toward a bank's quarterly earnings are two experiences separated by a significant emotional distance. He makes the payment, he moves on. Jordan, meanwhile, has no mortgage statement. He has a rent payment and an investment account and a flexibility that will not reveal its full value until the moment he actually needs it. For now, both of them are just paying for a place to live. One is building equity. One is building a portfolio. Which one is ahead depends entirely on which year you check. 3 years in, both of them have learned something important. Marcus has learned that homeownership is a relationship with a property that the property did not consent to and does not feel obligated to make easy. Year 1, the garage door opener dies. Covered under warranty, small win. Year 2, a section of the backyard fence decides that 20 years of standing upright is enough. $800 to repair. Year 3, the water heater. Marcus watches a YouTube video called "Replace Your Water Heater Yourself." Seriously, anyone can do this. The man in the video is calm and capable and makes the whole thing look like a reasonable Saturday afternoon project for a person with a basic level of mechanical confidence and access to the right tools. 4 hours later, Marcus calls a plumber. The plumber arrives, looks at what Marcus has attempted, takes a long breath, says 4 words Marcus will remember for the rest of his homeowning life. "I have seen worse. Once." Total cost, $1,350. The maintenance reserve covers it. But the water heater is never the only thing. It is the water heater, and then the HVAC service the following spring, and then the roof inspection that finds something during the refinance appraisal, and then the kitchen faucet that starts performing in a way that kitchen faucets were not designed to perform. Ownership is not a cost. It is a relationship with a series of costs that arrive on their own schedule with no particular interest in whether your timing is convenient. After 3 years, Marcus's mortgage balance has dropped from $278,800 to approximately $270,200. He has paid down $8,600 in principal. His home, appreciating at roughly 3.5% annually, is now worth approximately $388,000. That gives Marcus roughly $117,800 in home equity, real wealth, built in 3 years on a house he lives in every day. Jordan has paid $75,600 in rent across those same 3 years. His $80,000 investment has grown at roughly 10% annually to approximately $106,400. Adding his monthly contributions and their returns, his total portfolio sits at approximately $133,000. Jordan is ahead in liquid assets. But Jordan's rent is no longer $2,100. After 2 years of 3% annual increases, it has reached $2,228. The gap between their monthly housing costs has started closing, slowly, quietly, in the background of both their lives, without either of them paying much attention to it. Marcus's payment has not moved $1. It will not for another 27 years. Most people who write about buying versus renting mention the 5-year rule. Stay in the house for 5 years, and buying probably makes sense. Leave before that, and transaction costs eat you alive. The 5-year rule is a shortcut. Like most shortcuts, it is useful until the specific details of your situation make it completely wrong. The real number is not 5 years. It is the break-even point. The specific month when Marcus's total cost of owning, including every dollar spent on interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and closing costs, finally falls below what he would have paid renting a comparable home across the same period. For Marcus and Jordan, at these numbers, in this city, that crossover happened somewhere around year 6 or 7. Before that point, on a pure cost comparison, Jordan has been paying less for housing each month. After that point, Marcus is getting the better monthly deal, and the gap widens every year as Jordan's rent climbs and Marcus's principal and interest payment sits completely unchanged. At year 7, Jordan's rent has reached approximately $2,582 after 6 years of 3% annual increases. Marcus is still paying $1,855 in principal and interest. His total housing cost, including taxes, insurance, and maintenance, is around $2,658. They are nearly equal again. But they are not equal in the same way they were in year 1. In year 1, Jordan was ahead simply because renting costs less. In year 7, the monthly costs are similar, but Marcus is building equity in an appreciating asset, while Jordan is building a stock market portfolio. The race is genuinely close. And then in year 8, both of them get a phone call. Same company, different roles, extraordinary opportunity, new city. The kind of offer that arrives once in a career and does not wait around while you figure out whether the timing works for you. Jordan's answer takes 48 hours. He gives notice on his lease, arranges for his things to be moved, transfers his investment portfolio to the same brokerage account with a new mailing address, and is on a plane 17 days later. His entire net worth travels with him in a phone app with no transaction cost and no waiting for a buyer and no stack of documents requiring his signature. Marcus's answer takes 3 months. He lists the house. He finds a realtor. He waits for offers in the specific anxious limbo of a person whose largest asset is also where they sleep. He pays selling costs, agent commissions at 5.5% of the sale price on a home now worth approximately $490,000 comes to $26,950. Closing costs on the sell side add another $4,500. Over $31,000 leaves his hands before he sees a dollar of his equity. The equity Marcus walks away with is real and substantial, but accessing it costs $31,000 and 3 months and a level of complexity Jordan experienced none of. This is not an argument against buying. It is the honest price of buying that nobody puts in the brochure. The price is immobility, and immobility is only free until the exact moment it is not. Let us remove the job offer. Both of them stayed. Pure financial math at year 10 with nothing hidden. Marcus is 42. His home is now worth somewhere between $470,000 and $515,000 after 10 years of 3% to 4% annual appreciation. Remaining mortgage balance is approximately $240,500. Home equity sits between $229,500 and $274,500. He has also spent an additional $20,000 to $28,000 beyond his monthly reserve across the decade. A new HVAC unit in year 6. Exterior paint in year 8 after the Homeowners Association sent a letter with the specific energy of an organization that has decided your curb appeal is their personal responsibility. New kitchen appliances in year 9 when the refrigerator made a sound suggesting it had reached a private decision about retirement. Real money, not a crisis, just the ongoing cost of owning something that contains all of your living. Jordan is also 42. His original $80,000 has compounded for 10 years at roughly 10% annually to approximately $207,000. Adding all his monthly contributions and their returns, his total portfolio is approximately $305,000. Jordan has more liquid wealth than Marcus has in home equity. But here is the number that almost never appears in the buy versus rent comparison. The one that changes the entire conversation when you actually see it written down. Jordan's rent is now $2,824 a month. Marcus's principal and interest is still $1,855. Jordan now pays $969 more per month for housing than Marcus does. Not a rounding error. $969 more every single month. And that gap keeps widening because Marcus's payment is fixed forever, and Jordan's rent has no ceiling and no finish line and no version of itself that ever stops growing. They are both 52. Marcus's home is now worth somewhere between $628,000 and $768,000 after 20 years of appreciation. His mortgage balance has fallen to approximately $158,000. Home equity between $470,000 and $610,000. He has 10 years left. In 10 years, the $1,855 payment disappears entirely. His monthly housing costs drops to taxes, insurance, and maintenance, roughly $850 a month. He will be 62 years old with no mortgage payment and a fully owned asset worth somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million. Jordan's portfolio, after 20 years of compounding at roughly 10% annually, is worth approximately $775,000. Real, liquid, diversified, accessible without a realtor or a closing table. Jordan built it month by month through every year that tested whether he actually meant it. Through 2022, when the market dropped 18%, And Financial News described it as something that would make 2008 look like a warm-up. Through every month, when staying in the market felt less like discipline and more like stubbornness, he held. Not perfectly, but enough. But Jordan's rent is now $3,794 a month. No finish line, no equity waiting on the other side, just rent, growing 3% every year, with no version of the future where it stops. Now here is the number that reframes the entire 20-year comparison, the one that never appears in the articles because most articles stop at net worth and call it done. If both of them retire at 65 and live to 85, both pay housing costs for 20 years of retirement. Marcus's retirement housing cost on a paid-off home runs roughly $850 a month. Over 20 years, that is approximately $204,000 total. Jordan's rent at 65, after 33 years of 3% annual increases from his original $2,100, reaches approximately $5,200 a month. Over 20 years of retirement, his total rent payments exceed $1,200,000. $1.2 million, pulled out of a portfolio that has to fund it forever. Jordan's portfolio is larger at 52, but it carries a housing burden that never ends and never shrinks and takes over $1 million out of retirement. Marcus's doesn't. That is the number the buy versus rent articles never show you, because they stop the math at year 20 and hand the trophy to whoever has the bigger number on a screen. The bigger number on a screen is not always the winner. Marcus and Jordan meet for dinner on a Thursday evening in October. They are 52. The conversation goes the way conversations go at 52, when two people who have known each other since before either of them had money worth talking about finally have something worth talking about. Work, family, the way time moves differently than it did at 32, and how nobody warned you about that, and somehow everyone still acts surprised. At some point, without planning to, they talk about money, not the numbers. Neither of them leads with the numbers. Marcus talks about the house the way you talk about something you built to life inside, not as an investment, as the place where things happened, where the water heater failed at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, and a plumber said 4 words he still thinks about. As the place that asked something of him every year, and he gave it. And the place is still standing, and so is he. And in 10 years, it will be his outright, and no one will ever be able to tell him his lease is up. Jordan talks about the flexibility, the way you talk about a choice that cost you something real and gave you something real in return. The job offer in year 4 he took because he could. The city in year 9 he loved, and could not have loved if he had been attached to a mortgage somewhere he no longer needed to be. The portfolio that lives in his phone and travels with him and requires no closing table to access. Neither of them made the wrong decision. Neither of them made the automatically right one either. They both made a decision at 32 with $80,000 and incomplete information and a set of values that turned out to be accurate about who they actually were. And then they did the harder thing, the thing that actually determined the outcome. Marcus paid the mortgage every month for 20 years, including the month in year 4 when he almost pulled equity for a renovation he wanted but did not need and decided not to, including the months when the repairs arrived together and the neighborhood value dipped, and a neighbor mentioned it in a way intended to be casual and was not. Jordan invested every month for 20 years, including the month in year 7 when his portfolio dropped $40,000 in 6 weeks, and he came very close to moving everything to cash and did not, including every month when the money he was supposed to invest had somewhere easier and more immediately satisfying to go, and he sent it to the index fund anyway. The decision at 32 was not what separated them. What separated them was smaller than a decision. It was an ordinary Tuesday, repeated for 20 years, when nobody was watching and nothing dramatic was happening, and the right move was the same boring move it had been the Tuesday before and the Tuesday before that. Marcus's ordinary Tuesday was making the mortgage payment and leaving the equity alone. Jordan's ordinary Tuesday was making the investment contribution and leaving the portfolio alone. Neither of those Tuesdays felt significant in the moment. All of them were. You already know which one of them you are, Marcus or Jordan, buying or renting, permanence or flexibility, the paid-off house at 62 or the liquid portfolio funding rent that never stops growing? But here's the only question this video was ever really asking. On the ordinary Tuesdays, the ones with no drama and no clear decision point and no one watching and no YouTube video telling you what to do, are you doing the part that makes your choice work? Because the starting line does not determine the outcome. 20 years of ordinary Tuesdays does.